Psychologists face a difficult task when they set out to understand the nature of behavior and the workings of the brain and mind. This researcher is trying to draw an accurate picture of the brain's electrical activity associated with different mental illnesses.
4 minutes.
But he and his colleagues have one strong ally that makes success possible: the scientific method, a set of general procedures for gathering and interpreting data.
Keep your eyes closed and keep your mouth slightly open.
To be accurate, data must be collected from carefully controlled observations and measurements. And other researchers working independently must be able to obtain the same results using the same methods.
What kinds of places do you usually go to when you want to meet somebody either that you want to have a relationship with?
Interviews, surveys, questionnaires, and psychological tests are some of the methods psychologists use to explore our personalities, values, talents, and the effects of our environment. Take, for example, the work of psychologist Christina Maslach of the University of California at Berkeley. She applies research methods to study job burnout, where stress, lack of support, and negative self-evaluation impair job performance and personal well-being. Dr. Maslach uses psychometric research, a system of developing a standardized method for collecting data and assessing psychological phenomena.
This is research that started in the real world. But what it meant was that we were doing interviews, we were doing surveys, we were going out into the workplace, trying to understand what it was that people were experiencing. Look at this one. We would then develop new versions of the surveys or interview questions, and eventually began to develop a standardized measure of the phenomenon that we were getting. And so there was a whole period of psychometric research. We got terrific results in terms of how many people...
By refining her methodology, Dr. Maslach has developed a scale to measure job burnout. The scale is a practical implementation of her research that she brings into the workplace to assist others in making their work environments more effective.
What I have done is begun to move towards an applied research with organizations rather than just with individuals, where we provide them with the tools to do an organizational self-assessment on the health of the workplace. One of the exciting things about going out and working in these different organizations or doing the interviews is that I always come back with some new insights or new questions, and that kind of fuels the research. It's exciting to be able to see this process, this partnership go back and forth, so you think we're making progress. We're actually learning something that is making a difference for people.
By adapting her research to address the concerns of our workplace environments, Dr. Maslach demonstrates that real life is one kind of laboratory where both the subjects and the researcher reap the benefits. Some psychologists conduct experiments in laboratories like this one, designed for carefully controlling conditions and measuring behavior. The laboratory is one place where scientists test hypotheses, that is, predictions of how two or more factors are likely to be related. To test a hypothesis, researchers randomly assign some subjects to an experimental group which receives the treatment. Other subjects are assigned to the control group that does not receive the treatment. The results are then compared. Other research is carried out in the field, where naturally occurring ongoing behavior can be observed. This researcher is studying how the social behavior of baboons affects their health.
Looks like an FB-111.
Psychological research is also conducted in locations as unusual as this Air Force flight simulator.
One of the most important tasks you can be asked to perform as a fighter pilot is to visually identify features and markings on another airplane. If you'd look at the aircraft, cover your left eye, and read what you see, please.
All right. F, D, T, L, T.
Wherever it happens and whatever methods are used, basic psychological research carried out scientifically gives us a good shot at the truth. And if we understand how these researchers separate fact from fiction, perhaps we too can avoid some of the pitfalls of faulty reasoning and unwarranted conclusions in our everyday lives. The point here is not to make you all practicing psychologists, but to make you better consumers of would-be facts and theories, especially those you take for granted. One of the most remarkable things about us humans is how many of our beliefs we accept without question. These beliefs form a subjective reality that can influence how we perceive the world. They can affect our everyday plans, whom we choose to associate with and trust, and even our health. Some of our beliefs come from our culture. For example, what it teaches us about male and female roles, beauty, and courage. And each culture has its own belief systems and sense of humor.
Lactel, les mamelles de la France.
Happy birthday. Other powerful beliefs come from each individual's experiences and motivations, developed through personal interaction with the world. Our individual experience may also include the learning of critical thinking skills so that we can test our beliefs against scientific understanding.
What did you decipher the main ideas from what you read?
They danced around the fire, louder and louder and faster and faster.
If we don't learn how to think critically, we may believe in the unproven and the unexplained. Or become willing recruits in a never-ending stream of religious, social, and political cults. True believers who blindly accept authority rather than think for themselves. Research reveals that for many of the 25 million Americans without high school diplomas, the world can be a confusing and threatening place. These people often feel that they are controlled by fate and can do little to control their own lives. Many of them are also inclined to believe in psychic predictions, mystical forces, and cosmic signs, as do some better educated people. In fact, belief in mystical forces such as Haitian voodoo can be so potent that it can transform psychological and biological reality, for better or for worse. It can sometimes cure the sick or kill the healthy. At the Johns Hopkins University, common features shared by miracle cures, faith healing, political and religious conversions, and psychotherapy are studied by research psychiatrist Jerome Frank.
All forms of psychological healing, that is trying to influence people through words, share certain common healing features. I guess the first of those is the kind of relationship with a healer, a person who inspires confidence in the patient, makes him feel he can trust him, inspires the patient's hopes, is a very important ingredient. And then there's always a healing setting of some kind, almost always, a shrine, let us say, or a doctor's office, or a clinic even.
My feet were sort of cemented down to the floor.
Inaction, frozen.
There is a third that I guess they have in common, and that's they increase a patient's sense of mastery, of control over what's happening. See, the thing human beings can least stand is chaos. That's the most frightening experience there is. And anything that gives people a sense that they're in control again is a very important boost to their morale. And mentioning that one brings up a common feature of all these procedures, and that is if they work at all, they do it through arousing the person emotionally. He feels things as a result, happy or sad or frightened or angry. Mainly, I would say relief. Sometimes anxiety, because you get into areas that make him more anxious, make him or her more anxious than before.